Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 22nd of May 2016 and we have a few things to talk about, a lot of things to go through and a few bits and pieces regarding my week and Steve's week. And our guest on the show tonight is a chap called Gordon James Gianninto. Now, Gordon has been on the show before. He's a good friend of OYM Radio. And we're going to be talking about Planet X and Nibiru. Is it real? Is it fake? Is it a psyop? Is it happening? Is it causing issues to the planet at the moment? We don't know, but we're going to be getting Gordon in and to get his take on what he thinks is going on regarding Planet X and Nibiru. Before we do that, though, let's find out what the communications channels are.
Yes, communications channels this evening are...
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Yes, the phone number is 046 927 1212. If you want to call in from outside the Republic of Ireland, that number is 00353 469 27 1212. We just want to make a little announcement. If someone on People's Internet Radio would be able to maybe plug the stream back in, then we might be able to access it, but we're having difficulty accessing the PIR stream at the moment. So just want to kind of just get that information out there. But we are on our own stream. We have the chat room as well. It is up and running, so a big hi to everybody in the chat room. If you would like to join said chat room, just navigate over to oymradio.com. You will see the link there on the left hand side. You can log in there with your real name or a pseudonym, and you can chat amongst yourselves, or you can pose questions for our guest this evening. As Alan mentioned, it is Gordon James Gianninto. We also monitor People's Internet Radio chat room as well for the questions, and a big hi to everyone who's also logged in there. We're also on anti-social media, Facebook, so again, log on to oymradio.com. You will see the Facebook link there. You can click on that and find out what's happening, what's moving, what's shaking on our Facebook page. We also have the link there for the TuneIn Radio application. That's a free application, and you can check us out on your Android device, your iPhone, your tablet, and all sorts of devices. We also have the link there for the YouTube channel as well. Check us out on the YouTube channel. If you haven't seen our video, the Fluid Belief System, log on and check that out. All comments are welcome, good, bad, or indifferent. Alan.
Excellent, Steve. Cheers for that. Now, we found out what the problem was last week. The idea is don't press the red button, which I actually inadvertently did earlier on in the day.
He did. And the button that says do not press.
I did the Dougal and Father Ted, and I pressed the red button. So, anyway, we found out what the problem was, and we won't be pressing that red button again. It's staying where it is. But Steve's going to kick us off with the first few bits and pieces that we're going to be covering tonight.
Yes. Where will we start? Yeah. Okay, we start here. We actually received an email during the week from Graham Munro Hall. He's a dentist, and he just signed the campaign called "The Government to Ratify Minamata Treaty and Phase Out Mercury Amalgam Fillings." We do have a link for that. I will post it up in the chat room fairly shortly. But that's very important that dentists. Well, one, we do know there are many more, but one is kind of putting his money where his mouth is, so to speak, and he wants to phase out these mercury fillings because they're bad. Mercury fillings are bad news. We've had people on before. We've discussed how bad they are and what they do to a body. So it's nice to see that this chap is kind of putting his money where his mouth is, as I say. We do have the link.
Well, that is Graham, who was on their show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was on the show telling us all about the amalgams and stuff.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Yes. Well, anyway,
I didn't know whether you remembered or not.
No.
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 Oh, okay.
Now, do you know why I didn't remember?
Why?
Because I've got mercury fillings.
Ah. Okay.
Yes. You see.
So you have to get rid of them.
Yes, I do.
Are they Freddy's?
Are they what?
Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury. Oh, please. Okay. And the bad jokes start already.
I know. Yeah. Okay. Go on.
Okay. Right. I'll go on to the next item, will I?
No, I'll do that. I'll do that.
Yes, go ahead.
No problem. Okay, irishtimes.com. They had an article up there saying Leo Varadkar has ruined the health system. He is only in his new job a few weeks and he's preparing to destroy the welfare system. Now, we know what the health system is like in Ireland at the moment. It's pretty bad. It's a shambles. Steve's wife has first-hand experience of spending hour upon hour upon hour last week in the A&E and trying to get treated, to be told after all that time to be sent home.
That's right. I'll just give a quick brief one. Actually, my daughter was unwell. She was sick. She needs to have an ultrasound scan, and she went to the GP in a lot of pain. The GP rang the hospital in question and tried to kind of fast track it. And my daughter was sent down to A&E. She sat there from 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. And at 5 p.m. she was told, "No, I'm sorry, there's no one here to see it. You'll have to go home."
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how bad. And that's the tip of the iceberg. While she was there, she did say, and my wife said too, that there were people on trolleys in the corridors, and just there, and people going past them, and they weren't getting seen either. And
to keep it very, very basic, but if they actually legalised medicine, cannabis oil, for medicinal purposes, and gave it to a lot of the patients in St. Luke's, which is a cancer hospital, basically probably clear half the ward or half the hospital of the patients and cure people. It's that easy. That one thing could help so many people, but yet they won't do it because of ignorance and ego and control of the pharmaceuticals. It's just unreal. But anyway, that's something we'll carry on and fight for and educate people regarding the cannabis oil and the benefits of it. Steve, you're going to tell us about Claire.
Yes, there was a video up on the internet during the week, the interweb, and it's all over Facebook. Everybody that I know is kind of liking, and not liking, I suppose, but they have to like it to share it. They're sharing this video, and it's an attempted eviction in Clare, that's County Clare, during the week. And I've seen it. I've just said to Alan before we come on live, I was kind of angry and sad at the same time when I watched this video. It's a video of the Gardaí, that, of course, if you're listening outside the Republic of Ireland, the Gardaí will be the police force. And yes, they certainly use force. They were there with bailiffs. The bailiffs were there in balaclavas. They had their faces hidden. They were there in a black BMW car. They had part of the number plate masked off, so the people who were there from the anti-eviction task force couldn't record the license plate. They also, in the window over here in Ireland, you're required to carry or have on display in your window a certificate of compliance if your car is over a certain year. You have to say that your car has been tested and is roadworthy. They didn't have one of those on display in the car, and the car was, I think you could see that the registration was 2012, so 2016 they will be required to probably get one this year, so that's okay. But there was nothing displayed in the window. There was no details of insurance, and there was no road tax from what we could see. The guards stood idly by while this was kind of in breach of several Road Traffic Act, portions of the Road Traffic Act, but the guards wouldn't do anything about it. They were there and say they wouldn't do the job, basically. And a lot of the people were saying, do your job, guard. These are breaking the law. And the guard, he said, no, I'm here to deal one matter at a time. But they were trying to evict a chap from his home, and the chap wanted to see the eviction notice. And they said, that was, we haven't got it with us. Your man goes, well, how can you can't be evicting me from my home unless I can see this, and they just didn't have it. And as I say, the video's up on Facebook. It's horrible to watch because you can see exactly the way the system is run. It's now legal in Ireland for masked thugs to come along and pull you out of your home, and the police force / Gardaí will just stand there because someone somewhere allegedly signed a piece of paper giving them the right, these thugs, the right to do that. And I think if that is the case, that's kind of typical of the way things are going in Ireland in relation to evictions. If this continues, we may as well just pack our bags and throw our hat at the whole thing. I think we're wasting our time.
Seriously, you cannot distinguish now between the thugs and the criminals because they look the same. They're doing the same thing. They're turning up all in black with balaclavas on and hoods on and hoodies on and everything else. It's just unbelievable what's happening over here. This is 2016, and you think we'd learn by history when the Land League first started in the 1800s and all the kind of evictions that took place then. But look, history is repeating itself. And these people, we know these people are married and they have families and kids. Would they like a gang of thugs turning up at their house when their wife and their kids are in the house, kicking them out of their house? Would they like that? So we just have to turn the mirror on them and get them to look at themselves. But well done to the folks that turned up. I believe the anti-eviction task force was down there. Brian and a few of the guys were down there helping out. Well done, guys, for doing that. I think the outcome was that they drove off. I don't think the house was actually taken over, as far as I know, but I can, I'll stand corrected in that if somebody has any information on it for me. The other thing I'd like to say is that Ben did a fantastic interview on People's Internet Radio there the other night, and a very, very good interview. I recommend everybody go and have a listen to it. You can download it as an MP3 as well. And Ben just, calls a spade, and he just says, what he feels about the current system and what's going on, and the Gombean attitude, which he refers to, of the system. And the fact that, he wanted to go into politics to try and make a change, and nobody would vote for him. There's people voting for politicians because, hey, they fixed the pothole in the road, or, hey, this TD got my pension. I mean, not taking into account that their party is destroying the country. That's a Gombean attitude. I'm sorry to say that, but it is a Gombean attitude. We need to wake up. But he did a great interview. As I say, it was a pleasure sitting back and listening to Ben doing it. And fair play to the radio host who did the show with Ben. And it's just unbelievable. It's like Farda Headland. It really is like Farda Headland where we are at the moment. And unless we change, unless people start waking up and we change, nothing's going to happen. It really is nothing's going to happen. Now, he doesn't tar all the registrars and the judges with the same brush, because there are some judges, one or two registrars, who actually will do the job and stick to the law. But the majority of them are all kind of part of the system. I mean, conflict of interest. Registrar, obviously they want to get evictions because they get a percentage of the sale when they put the sheriff's hat on to go and do the eviction. I mean, where else would you get that in business or in society? It's like having a ref belong to the football team taking on another football team. That ref's obviously going to have a conflict of interest because he's from that team. That's the way it is. That's where a system is. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, go off to People's Internet Radio, download the interview, Ben Gilroy. I recommend it there. Steve.
Yeah, we just want to say a big thank you to anyone and everyone who has donated. A lot of your donations we have done a lot of great work over the past couple of weeks in helping out different groups with donations that we have received, the likes of the Hub. Alan has been down there several times, and we've put some donation money to use, let's just say that. But what we did last week was we actually purchased the annual subscription for the software that we use for doing the show every week, which means we now upgraded to the latest version, and if there are any problems, then we'll be able to avail of the technical support. It's just a kind of a small notice there, but thanks to anyone who has sent in donations. Thank you.
Much appreciated for that. Now we're going to go over to Alan and Steve's week. I was going to say, how's your week? Now, Steve is burning the candle at both ends. And I think it's getting to a stage now that you're working so hard that when he comes in the house, his little girl goes, "Who's that man, Mammy?"
Is that Uncle Daddy? Yeah.
So, how's your week apart from you?
Well, I won't say I'm burning the candle at both ends. I'm busy. Yeah, I mean, as well as anyone, I'm busy, and it's good to be busy. I would rather be, I suppose, working hard and getting the job done rather than sitting on me laurels wondering, can I get a job to pay these bills? But one does what one has to do. Sound like the Queen there, don't they?
There you go.
One does what one must do. Yes. Anyway, how was my week? Yes, I posted a couple of articles up on. I actually had them written down in my pocket. Here we are. I just had a couple of notes written, but I said, what? I'll actually just stick the articles up there, because then if I need to refer to them, it's on the screen. So I actually posted them up on the top of the chat room there, and one of them is in relation to mushrooms. And we've kind of talked about plants and how they can be beneficial to different ailments that people have. And one of the ones is mushrooms. And we've talked about different plants like the cannabis plant and all that. But mushrooms in relation to depression. There's one for you there now. This is something that I came across during the week, and I thought, what, we do have these walks that they do from time to time in Ireland called the Darkness to Light. And what the darkness to light is when people get up and they meet in one of the local, the Phoenix Park in Dublin or different parks around the world, and they do a walk from the darkness into the light. It's done, very early in the morning, and it's to raise awareness for depression. But of course, I don't know who instigated this. I don't know if it's, maybe the brainchild of one of the drugs companies. It may well be, it may not be. I do not know. But just in relation to depression, there was a study done in the Imperial College in London, and they had 12 patients in the study, and of the 12 patients, all 12 responded very well. 9 of them were severely depressed, and 3 were moderately depressed. And it says here they had on average tried 5 different treatment options that did not work. One patient has even experienced symptoms of depression for the past 30 years. During the study, researchers gave participants low dose of psilocybin, I think is how you pronounce it, I could be wrong, and this is seemingly one of the ingredients in what they call the magic mushrooms. And all the people kind of responded well to it. Now, they're saying that from what they gave them, it would have been the equivalent of 5 of the mushrooms, which some of them kind of had some, let's say, side effects like nausea, confusion, and headaches, it says. But these were kind of short term, and they responded well to the treatment. Obviously, maybe if they were getting the equivalent of 5 mushrooms, if they had have maybe reduced that down to something lower, maybe they wouldn't have had those effects. But they're going to do more in the line of studies on this, because this, everyone kind of responded well to it. And of course, pharmaceutical companies will not like it, because if people start using, again, plants to kind of heal themselves, then nobody really stands to make money, But yeah, that was just kind of something that I came across during the week. And again, this is kind of, come up on my radar during the week. In work, we were talking about GM foods. And I was just kind of, one of the chaps was there, and he was eating his seedless grapes. And he said to me, we were just kind of shooting the breeze about, say, the GM foods. And he said, oh, I wouldn't touch anything like that, And I said, well, you're eating GM food at the moment. And he said, I'm eating grapes, don't be ridiculous. And I says, yeah, where's the seeds? And he went, oh, these are seedless. And I said, well, how do you think they get to be seedless? And he says, well, that's just the way that's the way they grow. I said, no, they're genetically modified to grow without a seed. And he looked confused. And I have to say, and Alan knows who I'm talking about, the other woman, the other woman in the job who calls me the conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. She backed me up. And she said, oh, that's right, I heard that before. Yeah, they always come with seeds, and in order to get them seedless, they have to be genetically modified. So, let's just say Sean wasn't too impressed that he was eating GM food.
You might have a friend there.
Well, I tell you, I can't believe it. This woman always referred to me as a conspiracy theorist, and anything I would say, she'd jump on me. Not literally jump on me, but you know what I mean. And it seems now, over the past couple of weeks, she's kind of maybe it's the fact that I'm planting seeds, I don't know, but she's kind of agreeing with some of the things that I say now, and she's kind of starting to see things from my point of view. But yeah, the other article there is in relation to Monsanto. It just says here, Monsanto has known for over 35 years that its glyphosate-soaked food causes cancer. I'm not going to go through the article. It's there for anyone that wants to read it. But I mean, the information is out there. So they have known this. And yet they still, year after year, they get approval to put out these drugs, or well, not the drugs, the Roundup, that gets sprayed on our food. So the information is out there, and shame on you, Monsanto. But I suppose, profit before people. I suppose that's the way they do it.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Anyway, how's your week?
Right, before we get Gordon on, just a couple of things. Just like to say, I paid a visit down to Aisling, who runs the group, the charity, or part of the charity called You're Not Alone, which is for homeless and families who are struggling, homeless people. And this was, we did the part 2 of the shop. Again, thanks to Dougie for the donation there. And thanks to Steve's wife, Barbara Ann, for the lend of her car boot, because my car is too small, not enough space in it there. So we went and took a drive down, and we went and did a supermarket sweep. And we did a big shop there, so a big thank you. And the food has gone to the charity, as I say, You're Not Alone. They do a fantastic job in Dublin, and they feed the homeless there. And so if you do come across them and you have a couple of quid, stick it in the old donation box there. Well done to Aisling. She does a sterling job, loads of work that she does, volunteer, unpaid, but obviously she has a moral conscience, and that's what it's all about, helping each other. The other thing on the list before we bring Gordon in is I just paid a visit to the hub on Thursday to say hello to Sandra and Dermot and Sharon again. Doing fantastic work over there with the hub, helping people and, stopping them from being evicted from the homes. And believe it or not, I did a little bit of a pain genie treatment as well for Sandra and Sharon as well. So you never know, it's always handy. I do carry the pain genie around every now and again. And when I come across people, I offer them a free treatment, obviously. And, a lot of the time it goes down well. Obviously, when you have chronic pain, it takes a lot longer it needs multiple treatments. But I explained the whole kind of process. But it went down quite well anyway. Right, without further ado, we're going to get Gordon on because we have a lot to cram in to the next hour and probably 20, 25, 30 minutes. And we're going to be talking about Planet X and Nibiru. And as you know, if you were listening to last week's show, we had a guest on, Thomas. Nice guy, great information. He says that he felt that he was told by an insider that Planet X was a Psyop. And there's another video I've seen today saying from Cliff High, and Cliff High said that Planet X Nibiru doesn't exist. What's happening on the planet is the expanding Earth theory. That's why we're getting all these volcanoes, sinkholes, and weather pattern changes because of this. We've had other guests on the show saying, Nibiru or Planet X has come and gone. We've had other people on saying the ETs are putting a protective shield around it so it won't have a major effect on the planet. So we have all these kind of people telling us all different things about the same subject. So we said we know a man that can, and we said if we're going to talk about this, there's only one man that we can get on to talk about who'll know about this, and this is Gordon James. So before we bring Gordon on, Steve's going to give us a quick bio on Gordon.
Yeah, just a very short bio on Gordon. Gordon is an attorney, a contractor, and an ET contactee. Gordon had many childhood UFO and ET encounters. He saw his first UFO in 1964, a 1-mile diameter mothership launching 3 saucers over San Juan Harbour. He had his first vision of a pole shift in 1973 in a long and detailed dream. He had a waking version of same thing in 1988, and he realised a pole shift would bring open contact with ETs. Gordon, good evening.
Good evening, Gordon. How are you doing?
Good evening, Alan and Steve. I'm glad to be back.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks a lot for coming on. Gordon, we've heard an awful lot about Planet X and Nibiru, and from everything, as we've just said, it's a CIA op to, it came and went, it doesn't exist, or the ETs are protecting it with a shield, it's not going to have an effect on the planet, or it's expanded Earth theory. Now, you're the man that we need to get on to talk about this and give us your take on it. And I'm going to be a bit of a devil's advocate because myself and Steve are always looking out. We have our little Welders glass and we look out and we're looking for the second sun and then, seeing if there are any, eyes to the skies and all that kind of stuff. And we're not seeing anything at all. Yes, we're seeing Earth changes, but maybe that's just Mother Earth, Gaia. Maybe she's just, doing what she does. So what's your update? What's your take on it?
Oh, my goodness. Well, let's see. There's a lot of foolish rubbish out there, garbage, and you shouldn't be listening to any of it. I'm friends with Nancy Leader, who's written Zeta Talk. She's in telepathic contact with the Zetas, and she's taken questions from the public, asked the Zetas, and they telepathically give her the answer, and she types it out. And Zeta Talk is over 40,000 pages of questions and answers, and anything that anybody wants to know about Planet X is right there. And she takes questions on another website called poleshift.ning.com, and that's where people post pictures every day from around the world that they just took of Planet X next to the sun. So these other people, I don't want to name any names, but I'm really ashamed that they're even bothering to speak out, except for the fact that I expect that the CIA plans on disinformation, enables it, and their intention is to confuse people and to get ready for saving nobody. So if you believe all that and you want to just think it's your 401k pension is safe, and your bank account is safe, and your job is safe, and your country is safe, then just, it's free will. Go think that every day. But me, I live on a mountaintop on the Maine coast. I've got a lovely sea breeze of about 30 miles an hour coming through the window right now, and it's delightful. And I'm here because Maine is going to come up 500 feet, just like the only other place in the world that will do that, which is New Zealand, will come up 500 feet. And some places like England and Florida are going to sink an extra 150 feet. So when the water comes in the UK, it's going to be 850 feet high. So you can think that right up until the day you're just floating away. So it's sad that people are doing that, but I myself have taken pictures of Planet X. I recommend everybody get the number 12 Welders filter. Point the camera at the sun, push the shutter halfway down, that locks the focus, and then put the filter in front of the lens and take the picture, and you should be starting to get something.
Okay, so obviously the elites have all these underground bases we hear an awful lot about, and they're stocking them up. Now, why do the elite think that they're going to be safe in their underground bases?
Well, they've got a variety of solutions, none of which are going to work, unfortunately, for them. Their number one solution was to leave the Earth. And when NASA abandoned its space program, I'm not sure what I hear here. Oh, I know. Somebody's calling me on my cell phone, which I'm going to ignore. So their number one plot was to take the rich and leave the Earth and go to the Moon and Mars and avoid pole shift on the Earth altogether. Now, every time they tried to do that, the Council of Worlds has blown up their spaceships. So finally, they're beginning to get the idea that it's not going to work. Now, you've probably heard that SpaceX has been trying to land a rocket backwards on a floating barge on the ocean.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah.
Yeah, well, you want to know why that plan, which is, of course, ridiculous. Can you imagine an unmanned automatic rocket with flames coming out of the tail, lowering itself onto a barge in an erect position? Can you imagine that? I mean, it just seemed like the stupidest idea ever. The reason why was so that only the rich could take their yachts out to the barge and get into the manned capsule for another trip for more people to go to the Moon and Mars. So the Council of Worlds kept blowing up SpaceX's attempts, except for where they were resupplying the space station. And finally, Musk, who owns SpaceX, he got the message, and he's decided to give that part of it up. So he just wanted to prove it could be done. So the last time they did it, it actually worked. But it probably would have worked before that, but the Council of Worlds, which is the group of 1,000 unselfish races on the fourth dimension, they're here right now. So just like on a radio dial, you're listening to one station, but you know there's a station above that frequency that you could tune to. Well, the next dimension up is where all these unselfish extraterrestrials are. So they're working together, and they call themselves the Council of Worlds, and they're trying to stop anything like that. So if the United States or the Soviet Union sends up a satellite which is going to scan the Earth with infrared to pick up migrating people, then the Council of Worlds blows that up. So they just don't want anything to stop the normal migration of people in a disaster. Now, you probably heard of Planet 9 being discovered.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, Sky TV announced Planet 9.
Yeah, well, Planet 9 is not a planet at all. It's the binary twin of our sun that's burned out. And it's out in the direction of the constellation Orion. And that is where Planet X comes from. It's in orbit between that star and our sun. So some people call the other star Nemesis, but it's actually burned out. You can't see it no matter how much you want to look at it. It's 18 times the distance from the sun to Pluto. That's how far it is away. And that's why it takes 3,657 years for Planet X to come back. Planet X is an inhabited, atmospheric, volcanic, oceanic planet. And right now, if you draw a line between the Earth and the sun, off to the side at the 4 o'clock position next to the sun, which if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's the 10 o'clock position, because you're upside down, after all, in the southern hemisphere. So it's right there. It's 30 million miles from Earth, and its tail is 10 million miles long, but parts of it are the full 30 million, and it's brushing the upper atmosphere, causing magnetic storms. And this is what has brought down all the airplanes since MH370, which was a Boeing Dreamliner 777 that left Malaysia and disappeared in the Indian Ocean. Since that time, every single plane crash, commercial plane crash, except for one. The one was the Dutch airliner that was over the Ukraine, and Ukrainian fighter pilots fired 30-millimeter cannon shells through the cockpit to kill the pilots. Then a ground-to-air missile destroyed the plane. Except for that one, every single plane crash has been caused by the tail of Planet X. Now, the way that happens is the tail of Planet X rippling over the upper atmosphere like static electricity is causing magnetic storms in the upper atmosphere. And down below, you have tectonic plates shifting around and squeezing each other. And tectonic plates are granite. The whole crust of the Earth is floating on granite because, as amazing as it seems, granite is lighter than molten iron. So that's what the crust is made of. It's floating on the molten iron. And as these plates press against each other, quartz has an unusual quality, which when you squeeze quartz, you get electron flows. So, as you know, all radio transmissions and receptions are using quartz crystals, and you've probably seen a barbecue starter where you press a little trigger and a spark comes off the end. There's no battery in there. It's a piezoelectric crystal. It's a quartz crystal. And by putting pressure on the crystal, that creates electron flow. So what you have is, where there are plate boundaries on the Earth, you have electron flow in shallow water. And then overhead, you have a magnetic storm. Now, what happens is there's an invisible lightning bolt that goes from the sky down to the water, or from the water up to the sky. Nobody's ever seen it. I've seen lightning go from the ground to the sky, and sometimes I've seen it go from the sky to the ground. So I'm not sure, which is happening. But the fact is, the Airbus, especially the A320, is a fly-by-wire aircraft. In other words, once the computer goes, the whole thing is dead. It just can't do another thing. And that's what this last crash was. That's what all the other crashes are. So when you get a short in the electrical system, then the electrical systems go dead. And if you're at 37,000 feet and your air stops compressing, then everybody starts to suffocate. And this particular crash, the last one that they said happened on a way to Egypt, that was crossing the Mediterranean boundary where the Mediterranean plate meets the African plate. And Africa, the north end of it, is trying to move east and crush into everything on the east side of the Mediterranean, including Iraq and Iran, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, the whole bunch. So it crossed the plate boundary exactly when there was a squeeze. There was a lightning bolt that went between the water and the sky, and it shorted out the computer on board. And if you follow the news reports, you see that it's a bunch of cascading failures. And the same thing happened all the way back to the flight that went from, I think it was Argentina to Paris, and it was flight 447, I believe it was the number of the flight. When it took off, and they said, oh, it was pilot error. He aimed the plane too high. He didn't know where he was, and then it fell. But they're all the same, I'm telling you. And so as much as you want to worry about flying because of terrorism, this is a much more pressing problem. Now, the United States set up the funniest satellite I've ever heard of in my life. You know that movie, The Back to the Future?
Yep.
Well, they sent up a satellite they sent up a rocket that launched 5 magnetic reconnection flux satellites. Well, who's ever heard of magnetic reconnection flux? And what they're doing is they're going around the Earth measuring the magnetic storms from the tail of Planet X. So recently, about 9 months ago, before that rocket went up, NASA announced, we're going to see Aurora Borealis today because of the solar flare. Well, Space.com, which is usually on the same page with NASA, said, what solar flare? There was a solar flare last week, but it wasn't strong enough to cause an aurora on the Earth. And sure enough, there were auroras, and NASA didn't even comment on it because there wasn't any solar flare. So what could cause an aurora? And what it is that magnetism, it's simple. Magnetism controls gravity, and gravity controls light. So when you get these auroras, and now they're announcing them, but they're not talking about the solar flares. They're just announcing auroras. But when you get the aurora, it's because there's a magnetic storm affecting gravity, and gravity's affecting the light, and it's making the light bend. So
okay, question for you then.
Yes.
There was a chap over here. I don't know whether people seen it. You can go and Google it on YouTube. Check it out on YouTube as well. There's apparently a mainstream astronomer called Paul Cox, not Brian Cox, Paul Cox, and he's talking about the sun. And he was, remember in the last, I think it was last week, the week before, Mercury went past the sun.
Yes,
right?
retrograde.
Retrograde,
yeah. Direct on Monday, yeah.
Yeah, so basically he was showing this on a telescope, and you could see Mercury as a black dot just going right across the sun. He said, that's Mercury.
Over here, yeah.
Yeah, and then beside the sun was this other kind of bright spot. And he turned around and said, that's our second sun, because we're in a binary system. He said, NASA won't tell you about that.
Yeah. Well, that's not true either. You see, we are in a binary system, but guess what? The other star is burned out. It's black. Nobody's ever going to see it. They only discovered it because of, I love it, perturbations in the outer planets. But it's true that there is something there, and it's not a planet. They called it Planet 9, but it's actually Sun 2. It could be called Nemesis. It's not coming near the Earth. It's not doing anything with the Earth. But Planet X is a 29,000-mile diameter planet with hundreds and hundreds of moons following it in twin vortexes. In other words, each vortex has its own spin where the moons rotate. The bigger moons are closer to Planet X, and the smaller ones are further away. The tail is 10 million miles long, and it's twin-stranded. So when it came into the solar system around the side of the sun, it actually looked like a winged globe. And I have hundreds and hundreds of pictures taken by the NASA SOHO satellite. There's two of them. One takes pictures that are blue, and the other takes pictures that are red. You can go to nasa.gov SOHO, and you can see these pictures. They're downloaded every 10 minutes. And whatever Planet X or any of its moons show up in the picture, they patch another piece of sky over it. And they have the most ridiculous patch lines. I think a third grader could do a better job of pasting the sky into the pictures. But this is computer operated because they don't want you to see. But every so often the computer fails, and there's a picture there. There's enough people watching SOHO satellite on NASA that they actually are right-clicking on it and downloading the picture. And I have hundreds of such pictures, and there's hundreds of them on poleshift.ning.com. So there's webcams that are capturing it. There's regular people with digital cameras, with cell phones. So even though you yourself cannot particularly see it at any one time, other people around the world are seeing it.
We would love to see it. Now, just talking about Nancy and Nancy Leader from ZetaTalk.com. Now, I know the whole idea is that Nancy talks to Zetas and everything else. Do you not think that's just kind of some voices in the head technology by CIA or NSA, and Nancy thinks that she's actually speaking to the Zetas, but what she is actually doing is speaking to some, it's a Psyop program that she's not aware of?
I know that she's speaking to extraterrestrials because they come up with information that nobody else has ever even mentioned. For instance, they mentioned that there is a dark twin to Earth on the other side of the sun, and when the Earth stopped in its orbit around the sun, because it's going counterclockwise, and Planet X came in going clockwise. So I've told you before on this show, and I hope all of my listeners remember this, but gravity pushes, it does not pull. So when Planet X came in, it stopped the Earth in its orbit, and it stopped Venus, and the dark twin kept going around the Earth counterclockwise until it came up behind the Earth, and it stopped in its orbit too. Well, nobody, even ancient spiritual texts, cuneiform writings by the Sumerians, nobody has ever mentioned the dark twin of the sun, and yet there it is bobbing off the South Pole, apparently the same size as the full moon. Now, Venus, the Earth, and the dark twin of Earth are all 7,500 miles in diameter, and Planet X is 29,000 miles in diameter. But nobody has ever mentioned the dark twin of Earth, and then it was photographed by NASA, so that's just one proof, but there's so many. One thing they keep being asked, of course, is when is pole shift? And that's the one question they won't answer, because the selfish people are planning to get rid of people. Now, when they realize they can't leave the Earth, that the SpaceX project and some of these other projects are not going to be successful to take people off the Earth. And the Council of Worlds has said through the Zetas that this is a graduation and nobody's cutting the last class. It doesn't matter how rich you are, you're not cutting the last class. This is a spiritual graduation to the next dimension. So first we have pole shift, then we have open contact with ETs, then we have a new dimension, then we have open contact with ETs is part of that, because we're going to go to the next dimension and all the unselfish ones are on the next dimension. So we've got a lot of things going on, and the spiritual is actually the most important, because you're born, you live on the planet, and someday you're going to die. There just isn't any way around that. But what you do while you're alive, trying to become a better person, trying to learn empathy, trying to be unselfish, following the golden rule, that actually is the most critical thing that you can be doing to prepare for this. Of course, physically, I say, run for the hills. And I asked a friend this morning, I said, is there anything I should tell the Irish people about pole shift? And he said, yeah, tell them they're going to have a lot of Englishmen camping on their lawns.
Well, here you go. I was having a look at these maps that are out there, Gordon. And for our listeners, they can go along and see Edgar Casey's map, they can see George Michael Scallon's map, and I believe there's a third map out there as well. Maybe Nancy Leader's map. Now,
Lori Toy, I think, is the third one, and Nancy Leader's maps on ZetaTalk.com are the fourth and right. Versions of that. Yes.
Now, I've had a look at all these maps, and unfortunately Nancy's map is so small you can't really see Ireland and the safe areas. But on two maps of Edgar Casey's and George Michael Scallon's map, the only place that seems to be above water, well, there's two places in Ireland. One is over near Galway, I believe, and the other one is around where myself and Steve is. Now, we're actually 525 feet above sea level where we are anyway, but down the road is a mountain which is probably about, what do you reckon, Steve, about 800 feet?
At least.
900 feet above sea level. I'd say probably about 9 to 1,000, I'd say. Easy. So and it just so happens that these maps cover that area, and they're showing that area. Now, it'd be good to get an idea from the Zetas if Ireland, because in the Irish religion, in what we've been told in Ireland years ago, and I remember being told this as a kid, is that Ireland won't be destroyed by fire and brimstone, it will go underwater. And that's the kind of an old, Catholic, chastisement thing that I heard when I was a kid years ago. And we had the chap on the show, Glenn Hudson from Garabandal, saying about the third secret of Fatima, and the Father Malachi Martin, and he talks about the chastisement. And if people haven't heard of these, go over to YouTube. You can find them on there. But we'd like to know, it'd be good to know. I know that you can't find it where the pole shift's going to be, but it'd be good to know, get a kind of close-up of roughly where we think that Ireland's going to be. Because, at the end of the day, if Ireland is completely covered with this pole shift, then there's no point us worrying about getting food and stuff, because we won't be here, we won't survive it. But if there is going to be certain pockets of safe areas in Ireland, then it'd be good to know.
Well, I hate to say this, but those safe areas are going to be awfully small, and if everyone went there wouldn't be, people would be fighting each other to make room for themselves. So it's a very sad story. I suggest that you move to Montana.
Yeah, that's not going to happen anytime soon, trust me. So you've no idea regarding dates or is this the pole shift?
Yes, well, I do in that on my radio show, which is every Friday night here in Maine at midnight, and I guess in Ireland it starts at 5 in the morning till 7 in the morning. It's on the internet. You can listen to it on freedomslips.com, which is also the same spelling as freedomslips.com. But anyway, I'm on Studio A, and we just finished. I have two friends, and we call ourselves the Three Amigos, and we just finished going through the Alien Races book .pdf, which is for free on the internet, which is extremely interesting. It's compiled by the Soviet KGB, and they met and took photographs of 58 alien races that visit the Earth. Now, they are selfish ETs, and they're on the same dimension as we are, and so they're the same as us. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly. The ones at the next dimension up, they're all unselfish, but this group that's here now that can come and go, I think it's 5 of those 58 races all said that the beginning of the end, or the beginning of the beginning, is 2017 to 2022. So that's the 5-year period. Now, I've been waiting since 2012 for pole shift to happen and getting no answers from anybody. And it turns out that the Council of Worlds put these vibrating boxes on all the fault lines of the Earth to hold it off long enough to create social change where people would wake up. But people really aren't waking up. And so now they've unleashed it. So we have a lot of stuff that's about to happen that's going to shock the entire world. One of them is that there's a lot of precursor quakes on the Mississippi and the New Madrid area where the Ohio River meets the Mississippi. And that's going to be a huge downwarping that's going to be endangering everyone to the southeast of that is going to be underwater at pole shift. So you're talking about possibly a third of the United States, from eastern Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina all the way down to the middle of Texas is all going to be underwater, and everything south of that. The actual line where the surf will be breaking is just south of Atlanta, Georgia. So that will be above the waves, but everything south of that, including Florida, will be under 850 feet of water, just like the UK. So you have that happening. Then you have there's swarms of quakes under Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier and Mount Hood. And that's happened before, but never simultaneously. And they're all going off simultaneously. Then we've had 4 gigantic quakes in Ecuador, which you're probably familiar with. The USGS downgrades the magnitude by a factor of 2. So when they say it's a 6.8 or an 8.8, it's really a 10.8. Or if they say 6.8, it's an 8.8. So you just add 2 to whatever the USGS says, and that's what the true size of the quake. That's where the Nazca plate is trying to force itself under the northern tip of South America. Then a volcano just went off in Costa Rica on Friday, a big volcano near the capital city. And there's volcanoes going off on the whole ring of fire. So the effect of pole shift is that the Pacific is going to narrow. The bottom of the Pacific Ocean is going to slide under the North American plate, which you would think would raise it up and make everybody in California safe, but it's not going to be that way. The movement of the plate under California is going to break it up into a series of islands and flood salt water into all the valleys where all the food comes from. So they're going to be permanent saltwater valleys. So you've got the San Andreas Fault going from the Mexican border to north of San Francisco, a distance of 600 miles, and then it curves back out to sea. And then under Mount Rainier and under Mount Hood, you've got the plate sliding over there. So, and then in the Atlantic, you've got Africa trying to move east. So right where the southern tip of South America is firmly attached to the Antarctic plate. So the southern tip of South America is not going to move, but a big crack is going to open up just to the east of where this volcano keeps going off in Chile, where they keep having earthquakes, there's going to be a crack that goes from the Andes Mountains all the way to the Atlantic, and that's going to allow the northern end of South America to move 400 miles west. That's going to crush Central America. So as it does that, it's disconnecting from the Caribbean plate. So the southern end of the Caribbean plate is going to start sinking. And all the people on the islands, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, all those islands are going to start sinking. So all those people are going to get on boats and head north, but that isn't really going to help them unless they get up as far as, Indiana. And even that's going to be flooded because the St. Lawrence Seaway is going to rip wider, and it's going to open up a crack that goes all the way to Omaha, Nebraska. Edgar Cayce said that, and he died in 1945. He said that in 100 years, in the year 2100, the biggest seaport in North America will be Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay. Let's hold it off there. Because we are, I know you do an awful lot for the American side, but because we're Irish, I think our Irish listeners are going to be more interested in what's going to happen in Ireland rather than Nebraska or Montana. I know we have international listeners, but we'd like to kind of think about what's going to happen in Ireland, the UK, and Europe, as opposed to the States. And we'd like to know. Now, obviously, we have a few comments and questions coming in, and some people are kind of saying, well, it sounds like fear porn, but, at the end of the day, these people who are saying that need to do their own research. And there's no point saying, having to go or being, saying to somebody that it's fear porn if you haven't done your own research, because that's just ignorance. So I would suggest that if anybody's thinking of that, maybe do the research, and when you've done the research, then when Gordon comes back on again, then we can, if you have any questions, we can get Gordon to answer them. But just having to go with somebody and saying something without doing the research is not really the right way to approach it. I know. Sometimes I sound like Dr. Doom, but really think about all the evil in the world. I mean, I listened to the beginning of your show, and you're talking about people being evicted and banks being harsh. And you think that a small broom is just going to come and sweep that over and fix it? No. Yeah. Do you realize that probably before the end of this month, Hillary Clinton and her husband are going to be indicted and arrested and charged with major felonies for public corruption? They were hiring Bill to give speeches, and the people that hired Bill had motions before the U.S. government that had to be signed off by the Secretary of State. And after they paid Bill enough money to speak in their country, then all of a sudden Hillary okayed it. I mean, it's just unbelievable what's happening. Why do you think Donald Trump is so popular? The guy is not owned by anybody. That's the kind of leader that we hope we get. Well, the thing is, we've heard the opposite again. We've heard that Hillary is going to be put in because she is a friend of the cabal and she's doing everything that they wanted to do. So...
that's the beauty of it. These days are over. That's the beauty of it. Before pole shift, there's a lot of things that are going to happen that are going to expose corruption. You know about those 11.5 million files of all these world leaders and wealthy people who have secret accounts in the Caribbean and elsewhere.
The Panama Papers, yeah.
Yes. They haven't even begun to go through all of those, but evidently they found $100 million transfer to Hillary and Bill. So there's a lot of stuff that's about to come out. But more than that, I've got to tell you, everybody said, well, President Obama has been walked in. There's another soul occupying his body, and it's Abraham Lincoln. And that's who everybody voted for. And his job, if there was one, was to announce Planet X and pole shift and get everybody ready. And he was supposed to do that jointly with the president of Russia and the president of China. And I think I might have said that the last time I was on your show.
Yeah. No, you did say that. No, look.
This August, I didn't know that the original owner of a body can decide to come back. And so the original Obama, the drug-smoking Hawaiian beach bum, decided to come back to enjoy the last part of the Obama presidency. So he kicked Abraham Lincoln out. So at that point, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joseph Dunford, took over the United States in a double-secret martial law. So that's what we've got going. Forget Obama and Biden right now. It's General Dunford is in charge. And General Dunford went into the Federal Reserve, kicked out all the Jewish bankers, and closed the Federal Reserve. 160 countries joined the Chinese yuan, gold-backed yuan, on April 19th, and the U.S. dollar was left in the dust. So if we don't get a gold-backed dollar soon, which is what General Dunford is working on in Reno, Nevada, they're printing gold-backed dollars, and there'll be a period of exchange. But if that doesn't happen, it'll take a wheelbarrow full of U.S. dollars to buy a loaf of bread by the end of July.
Okay, well, let me just put a bit of logic into this a little bit, right? All this stuff is going on, right? We know about the exposures coming on, the likes of we've heard about the Dunfords, we heard about the yuan and getting away from the dollar and everything else, right? And that all sounds like good, positive stuff, right? So why would the Council of Worlds let the pole shift happen if all this good stuff is apparently going to be happening and happening?
Because we need to have a system that's all new from top to bottom. And you're going to die anyway. The point is, if you have only 5 minutes to live and you don't spend it helping somebody else, then you're going to be reborn on another planet where you're going to continue in the third dimension, but the Earth is going to be a fourth dimensional planet. So you will have the option to be born into a newly designed, upgraded, hybrid body, 100% human, and you'll live 400 years, you'll be completely telepathic, and you'll have IQs of over 300. That's who's going to be occupying the Earth after this dimensional change. And the only way you get to be part of that is by being unselfish. So if you're selfish, you've taken the wrong fork in the road. If you're unselfish, you've taken the fast track. So, and you don't have to be a saint, but to be 51% unselfish, to think of other people first. That's the most important thing.
So you think between the years 2017 and 2022 is when there's going to be something happening?
Absolutely. And my wife had an extremely clear vision that as the tidal surges come in, it's pushing ice. Now, the Zetas have said that pole shift will only happen either in August, when there's absolutely no ice, December, when it's just starting to form, or April, when it's beginning to break up. So I interpret my wife's vision, an extremely lucid dream. I interpret her vision as pole shift next April. Now, Bill Gates, because you're using Microsoft Windows and you're using Skype. So, of course, you're familiar with Bill Gates. He gave a private lecture where it cost $6,000 a person to listen to him, and no recordings were allowed, but somebody actually recorded the speech. And he talked about sculpting the coming plan to sculpt the population using viruses, vaccines. Now, what does that mean? What that means is that if they can figure out when pole shift is coming, just before that time, every vaccine that is distributed by the pharmaceutical companies will actually not have a weakened virus in it, but have the full-strength virus to kill as many useless eaters as they can.
Okay. Now, we've heard last year Gordon, we heard an awful lot about the 4 blood red moons, and September was going to be a bad time, and by Christmas the world will be a different place, and we heard an awful lot of stuff last year, and nothing happened.
Well, I honestly thought that a lot of changes would happen last year, but they didn't. But I never thought that the 4 blood moons or the 3 blood moons, whatever they were, meant anything. It's just, when the Earth and the Sun and the Moon line up in a certain way, then the Moon looks orange, or you could say bloody or an orange-brown. But that really didn't have much to do with anything. But you really have to start watching the Earth changes. And the Earth changes are that Japan will shatter from south to north. Then you have the New Madrid fault going off, then the San Andreas fault. It's possible that the San Andreas fault might go off first, because they just had a meeting of all these seismologists in Long Beach, California, and they said the San Andreas fault is locked, loaded, and ready to go. And everyone knows that. There hasn't been a quake on that since 1857. And also, I have a friend that lives right where the Ohio River meets the Mississippi, and he woke up the other morning and every cabinet door in his house was open. Now, he's in his 70s and he was asleep. He didn't feel or hear anything. But when he woke up, every single cabinet door in his office, in his kitchen, in the dining room, every cabinet was open. And that meant that there must have been a quake under his house during the night.
Okay.
And
I was just going to say, do you think that, because of what happened last year and people like yourself and other people coming out and talking about stuff and then it doesn't happen, do you not feel that discredits what you have to say?
No, because clearly the extraterrestrials have said, we were messing with it. We were putting boxes on the earth faults to vibrate, to let the quakes not happen all of a sudden, all at once. But now we've unleashed it. So,
well, okay. Yeah, because people are going to be skeptical, obviously, listening to information. And when there's a lot of this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and nothing happens, then they go, well, okay, here we go again, And I can understand that point of view, because myself and Steve used to talk about dates and talk about stuff not so long ago. The last couple of years we used to talk about stuff, and now we kind of don't bother because now I know there's probably a bit of a Psyop program going on to desensitize us with dates, because when something does come up and we just go, yeah, there's another date, and we just ignore it, and then something will happen. Maybe that's part of the program.
It's interesting that this Alien Races book, it turns out that a Ukrainian spy for the Soviet Union retired to Portugal, and he was quite elderly, and he asked his son to come and move all these boxes out. And his son found this book, the Alien Races book, and said, well, can I keep this box? And his father said yes. So then he got a friend, and they started translating it from Russian into Ukrainian and into different languages, Italian, and finally they translated it into English, and now it's on the internet. But as early as 1935, the Soviet Union was told that there would be a huge disaster on the Earth in 2017.
Yeah, well, if people want a copy of that book, email info@oymradio.com. We'll send you a copy of that book. We do have a copy of it.
Oh, well, it's for free on the internet.
Yeah.
It's alienraces.pdf. So anyone can download. And it's about 200 pages long, but it's also got pictures that are pretty amazing. But I have some information that I can't say where I got it, but I do happen to believe that it's very trustworthy. And it said that, and you're going to love the way they frame it. They say, if you have a bunker, you better plan to be in it by Christmas Day. And you'll be in it for a year and 2 months before you can come out.
Right, well, we'll be dead by then, I think, because we've no bunker and we don't have food to last.
Well, I don't have a bunker either. I've had people who own bunkers and said, would you be interested in coming to join us? And I said, no, I could live in a cave, but I would have to go outside every day. I can't be inside a bunker with 50 people for 5 years or something. Forget it. I think even if I had 49 other clones of myself, that somebody would end up dead just about every day.
I know what you mean. Right, Gordon, we've had a lot of questions coming in, and we're going to try and get through as many as we can. So we're going to quick fire them over. So if we can do a kind of a quick synopsis on each question, then we can get as many questions as we can. We'll go through them, okay? Right, Steve, over to you.
Yeah, Gordon, we have a question here from, the first question that came in earlier on from Chris, and Chris is wondering, if Planet X is the far side, if Planet X is the far side, why can we see it for half the year as the Earth orbits the Sun?
Oh, well, you can see it every day because it's next to the sun. In other words, if you're in the northern hemisphere, it's at the 4 o'clock position of the sun. I've taken many pictures as well as other people who have gotten this, it's like there's a bright caterpillar on the side of the sun. That's how close to the edge of the sun it is. That's why you can't look at it with your eyes. You'll go blind. You'll burn your retina. But so it isn't a matter of half the year. It's right next to the sun. So if the sun is shining, it's right there. And the tail stretches to Earth, and the tail is full of iron oxide dust and hydrocarbons. So there's an oily sheen. If you've ever looked at the moon in the last few years, you'll see that the moon sort of seems like it's oily. And the same with the sun. It looks ragged. And that's why it's there. So, I guess we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah, and actually, you've actually sent us over the picture that you've taken of the sun with the second sun beside it, and you did say it was through you done it through a digital filter, and it wasn't a lens flare, and it is genuine. Is that correct?
Exactly. You can put your camera on video and point it at the sun and turn it around so that the lens flares move as you move the camera, but you'll notice that anything that's actually next to the sun stays next to the sun.
Yeah. And again, if anyone wants to test this out, and if they can get their hands on welding glass, which is probably available in a lot of hardware stores, then
it's cheap as dirt.
It is.
And you want the number 12 filter.
Yeah, number 12. We actually got the 14s, and you're saying you said it was that the 14 is too dark. We may have said that to people before, so 12 is the one to get. Yeah.
Well, there's another thing. There's these moons in the tail swirl, and they create little tornadoes. And the hollow place, have you ever put a blender on and looked into it, and you see that you can look all the way down to the blades while it's spinning? Well, the vortex is so strong that it acts like a fiber optic filter. So if the end of the vortex is pointed towards the sun, it directs a circle of light at the earth, and that was actually caught on a bridge cam over the Mississippi River. There's a place called the Twin Cities, and they have a radio station called Twin Cities TV, and they were looking at the bridge because they were doing a traffic report just at sunrise. Now, the sun was on the horizon, and all of a sudden they noticed a circle of white light on the edge of the Mississippi, and then it crossed the river and went up over the bridge and then continued on to the other side of the river. And they said, what the hell is that? Is there a helicopter? No, there's no helicopter. Is there anybody with a spotlight? No, there isn't. And people couldn't explain it because the sun was just peaking above the horizon. But that's an example of one of these vortexes channeling light like a fiber optic cable into a spot on the earth. And these are things that nobody in any spiritual text or anything, because remember, Planet X has been coming every 3,657 years. The last time is in the Bible in Exodus and Joshua chapter 10. And the time before that was Noah, and the time before that was Atlantis, and we really don't know all of them going back further than that.
Would it be possible, though, Gordon, just putting it out there, that any of these vortexes that are seen, or anything that's kind of seen in the sky, would it be possible that it could be originally from like an Earth-based transmitter, something like the HARP operation?
No, not at all. No, this is stuff that, and a lot of times people who take pictures of Planet X get the sun, get Planet X, and they also get these white circles in the sky. And they are these vortex swirls from each strand of the tail spinning so fast that it acts like a fiber optic cable. So don't be surprised if you start taking pictures of the sun and you get these strange pure white spots. And that's because it's almost like a fiber optic cable is pointed right at your camera.
And can I just jump in there? On the Facebook page, we posted up a YouTube video of a guy the other day who took all these little white specks in the sky in America, in the States. I don't know where his location was, but if you go up to our Facebook page, the YouTube video's there, and this guy said there's hundreds of these. And that, just because you mentioned fiber optic there, Gordon, that's what it looked like in the sky, all these little white dots in the sky.
Well, they're actually have a diameter, so they're not just dots. But I've gone outside, even at my own house, to take a picture of the trees or something, and I get all these orbs. I have one picture where I must have 50 orbs in the air between me and the trees. And those are actually advanced souls on another dimension showing themselves for my camera. But if you investigate the subject of orbs, you will see many, many people have taken pictures of things, and they get these strange orbs in the picture.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Even inside a house.
Yeah, no, we've done that. Myself and Steve have photos of locations we've been at where orbs have been on it. So, and that's second nature. We've done that. Sorry, I'm just going to pass you back over to Steve to get these questions done. Steve.
Yeah, another question that came in from Thomas, and Thomas was wondering, is Planet X getting pulled along with us like the Sun, the Earth, and other planets?
No, we've all come to a stop. The sun is still in its normal travels, but the planets go around the sun, and their path is stopped. Just Venus, just the dark twin, and just Earth. And to those of you who don't believe that gravity pushes and it doesn't pull, I say this. When was the last time you heard a rushed meeting of astronomers saying we have to do something about this terrible problem of planets colliding and stars colliding? You've never heard that because it never happens because gravity pushes.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't even how to I don't know, examine that. I mean, how would you do an experiment that you...
Well, I know
I'll give you an example. They found a galaxy where there's two blue black holes next to each other. One is super gigantic, and the other is very small. And they're like, how come the really big one isn't sucking up the smaller one? And that's because they're pushing on each other. Gravity pushes. Hate to repeat that, but...
Yeah. No, that's logical. That makes sense to me. You know. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah, we will continue on. Thomas goes on to say in another question, if the sun is going through the galaxy at 500,000 miles per hour and through infinite space at 670 million miles per hour, how could Planet X know how to find us?
Well, there's an electromagnetic field in a solar system, and this is a binary solar system. There's two stars. So even though it's not lit up and glowing, it's still a large mass. And this started a long time ago. I think Planet X has been coming to Earth every 3,657 years for at least 2 billion years. Probably back to the beginning of the solar system, 4 billion years ago, the beginning of Earth, the beginning of the universe, 16 billion years ago. I really don't know how long it's been doing, but there could come a day when the solar system is in some sort of a strange arrangement and the gravity of all the planets pushes back in such a way that Planet X glances off the solar system and continues into dark space. And then they'd all look at each other on Planet X and go, well, that's it, because they're never going to come back near a star. They're going to freeze.
Well, just in relation to, say, what's going on out there in the atmosphere or the celestial beings and planets and all. On your bio earlier, Gordon, we read out that you were an ET contactee. Now, have you had any contacts recently? And if so, have you been given any information, as to what exactly is happening and what's going to happen? And if it's going to be cataclysmic, is there any steps we can do or take to prevent it?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot, and I mean a lot of people say, oh, because people have found spirituality and they've awakened and they're so spiritual now that the benevolent ETs are going to protect us. And I've heard everything from Planet X isn't even here to it's on the other side of the sun where it won't cause any trouble to that everything isn't going to be quite as bad as it's supposed to be. But I tell you this, if you're listening to me, you better get ready now, because if you're ready now, you're ready tomorrow. And if you're ready for the worst, then gee, if it's better than that, hallelujah.
Yeah. Okay. Jasper's wondering, what does Gordon think of? And again, we know we don't like asking guests what they think of other people or other people's work, but the question just goes, what does Gordon think about Corey Goode and the Secret Space program? Corey doesn't seem to give the whole Planet X thing much credence and claims to be in the know.
Well, I originally had never heard of him until, a couple of months ago. And now that I've looked into his information, I think there's a lot to it. I really do. I don't think the Earth is hollow, but I think there are extraterrestrial races who have been in the Earth's crust in cavern systems for a long time. And I think that the government knows about that. And recently, this week, I just found out about William Tompkins, Tompkins, and if you do a search out for Tompkins plus Nazi, he was part of the naval spy system during World War II, and he had a lot of information from spies who said that reptilians gave the Germans space travel in 1913 and showed them caverns in the Antarctic where they had this. Now, A lot of people say, that's all this stuff is not true and this and that. But I think clearly extraterrestrials, if you read that Alien Races book, you see that the Soviet Union was told that alien races have been coming here for hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, and they don't talk about the inner Earth particularly, but I've come to believe that there is something to that, and I would pay attention to what he says, because he read William Tompkins' book, Selected by Extraterrestrials. That's the book. You can buy it on Amazon, I guess, for $22.50 American. It says it as a free PDF copy, but I've had 4 different people try and find it, and nobody seems to be able to. But anyway, Corey Good commented that what William Tompkins says is true. And it says that the people who got this technology did not tell, when the Nazi government formed, they did not tell the top Nazis or Hitler or any of the group the full truth of what they had. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if there's always been a lot going on in the Earth. And as you know, we're probably the last to be told anything.
Well, I totally agree. Yeah,
that's obvious. Yeah, they're going to. Yeah, definitely, they're going to. They won't be telling us anything. But the elites going down to their underground bases when things start happening, are they going to be safe down there?
I don't think so. I think they've all been told very simply, if you turn to light and love and you can stay, or if you're selfish, leave. That's what the extraterrestrials were told. The wealthy people were told, roll up your sleeves and start gardening with the normal people, form survival communities and be unselfish and you'll be fine. Well, of course, they don't do that. They've got private armies. I mean, just imagine that you're in one of these billionaires' private armies. Are you really going to be a servant? When the whole world is going to hell, aren't you going to say, I'm taking my wife and kids and I'm leaving, goodbye? Or aren't you going to take your assault rifle and shoot the billionaire and say, now I'm in charge? And that's the beauty of selfish people, is they all try and do each other in. So actually, most selfish people would be done in by each other within a couple of years of pole shift.
Yeah.
So by 2022, what I imagine what they're talking about with 2022 is open contact. But I've had a vision in 1988 that I look up one day and there's saucers just sitting there in the sky over the whole Earth like polka dots in the sky, but close enough to see that they're actually discs.
And it's not Project Bluebeam or anything like that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, here's something for you. Just being hypothetical with this, Gordon. What if you were presented, somebody approached you from the inside, and they sat down and they said, Gordon, Planet X is a Psyop. It's not there. What you're seeing is HARP, or what you're seeing is advanced technology that we're using to fool people. How would you take that information?
I would think it's they're trying to convince me to change what I say on the radio. And listen, I, a long time ago, realized that I could use my heart to tell whether something was true or not, and I believe this is absolutely true. This is a really big broom that's going to sweep the earth clean of all these selfish souls, and who's going to be left is going to be unselfish. And then when we go to the fourth dimension, then we're going to have open contact with fourth dimensional beings. And if you die, which of course everyone's going to die at some point, when you die, you'll be able to be reborn into an advanced model body.
Well, the one thing I agree with you there is definitely we are in Sodom and Gomorrah, to use that as a kind of reference, because the way the world is now, it needs a cleaning, it needs a cleansing, it needs to be wiped. I think we can all kind of agree with that, to be honest with you, because the world has just gone to hell in a handbasket, and it needs to be cleaned and wiped. Now, 4 people I've spoken to, or we've spoken to on the show, and I'll give you the names: Paddy Broussard, Simon Parks, Dr. Joseph Cipollone, and the fourth person it'll probably come to mind. It'll come back to me. But we spoke to 4 people about the whole idea of this cleansing, and they all say that there is a percentage of people on the planet, between 8% and 12%, that will be viable right? Now, maybe what they're referring to when they say viables is the more than 51% who are not selfish, who are service to others and everything else, right? Who are viable, who will be, let's say, I don't want to use the whole idea of saved, but you know what I mean. They will be kind of the chosen people who will go on to the next phase, while the robots and the psychopaths will be wiped and they'll be taken care of. Now, obviously...
Well, I've got to say I agree with that. The Zetas have said that up to a third of the population will be saved, but they'll be offered salvation. In other words, an unselfish person will be asked, would you like to be lifted off the planet during pole shift? You don't need to go through this. Would you like to do that? And then they'll be given the choice, would you like to come back right after pole shift, or would you like to stay with us? How would you like it?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because my thinking of this, and myself and Steve have talked about this, right, is that if you're a person who's service to others and unselfish, but your next door neighbour is a psychopath, right, and he's in high ground the way you are, then that doesn't make sense. So there must be something more where you're either taken away, or, you're picked up in a car and you're taken away, or you're brought somewhere, or you're chosen, or whatever way the system works. If this is going to happen, that must be the only way it will happen. Now, also, on the other side of this, we had people like Stephanie Ralph on, and she said, if you're being asked to come on the ship, if a ship, let's say for argument's sake, a ship lands down, in a field across the way from you, and they're saying, come on the ship, you're one of the chosen ones, right? The other side of the coin with Stephanie Ralph and Chris Thomas is, don't be getting on that ship, because they're probably the reptilians who are going to use you for food on their trip home. Because the good ETs...
Well, there's always that danger, but these will be fourth dimensional ships, and to take you off, they will just take you out of where you are.
That's it. That's what I was going to say. In
a sense, it's like the Rapture. Although I did see a movie that was a riot. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but Rapture Palooza. And there's this family with a husband and wife and a daughter, and the daughter has a boyfriend. And the rapture comes, and the mother gets taken up there, but then they kick her back down. And meanwhile, people are being killed by falling rocks, and they go, well, I don't believe in God, and then a rock comes from God, the sky and kills them, and stuff like that. And then at the end, the son gets a laser beam that the devil created, Satan created, and he accidentally kills Jesus, and then Satan and God get in a fight, and they both electrocute each other. And the movie ends with the girlfriend is pregnant by her boyfriend, and life seems to be happy. But no, that's the rapture, and it's funny that they always portray it as your clothing is left on the ground, So I was going to take a picture of my clothing on the ground and send it to some people and say, well, this is Gordon's friend. He seems to be missing, but we did find this, But I was going to do that for April Fools, but I didn't.
Yeah, okay. No, as I say...
I think that, the question is, like, some people will be asked, everyone will be given a choice, who's unselfish, will be given a choice. Do you want to stay and help your neighbors? And so many of those people will choose to stay through pole shift, because that's when they're going to be most needed. Or they'll say, well, I'll come back right after pole shift and help create survival communities. And other people will be very happy to stay with the unselfish ETs. But this isn't something where a ship is going to land across the street and they're going to wave at you. So I would be suspicious of that.
Yeah, definitely, because, as I was saying, on a hypothetical note, we've talked about this on the show, and if a craft did come down and they invited you on, then that's the whole consent thing. That if you're consenting to go on the ship, and then you've consented to it, so
like attracts like, and there's a really famous person I was talking to the other day, and he told me 8 incidents of the most horrible alien interactions I've ever heard in my life. And every single one of them was more frightening than the next. And it seemed, except for that he knew they were extraterrestrials, he would have thought that he had met demons. And in each case, he told them to get lost, and they got lost. But I was thinking, I've always said that like attracts like, and all of my alien contacts have been extremely favorable. I feel I'm in the midst of unconditional love. I feel like it's awe-inspiring. I don't feel anybody's trying to control me. I've met humans from the Pleiades. I've met Zetas, and I've met even some very tall mammals that look like praying mantises, and I had a math discussion with them. So they're very intellectual and very scientific, which I like that kind of person. So
okay,
it didn't scare me even for a minute,
Yeah. Okay, we have a few more questions. We'll try and quick fire them over to you and get them answered for our listeners. Steve.
Gordon, Joan is wondering, where does Gordon see innocent people that have never been given a choice to decide one way or another read their agenda?
Well, there's a lot of people who don't know anything about any of this, but they're good people. Those people are going to be offered a chance to be saved as well. Those let me just tell you, the only real friends I have that really even understand half of what I say are around the world on the internet, like you guys. You guys really understand what I'm talking about. But so many people, where I live on the Maine coast here, I can't name a single... People go, well, why doesn't your friend come over and help you cut firewood? I'm like, what friend? Because people think, oh, he's a little odd. Maybe he's a mental patient. It can't be true anything that he says. And that's the kind of attitude that I meet. But yet, there's some really good people around who are unselfish, and all these young organic farmers have started moving to Maine over the last few years. And we have a really huge Amish community and a Shaker community. The Amish is giant. The Shaker is almost withering away. But still... and I drove by them the other day on my way to get another organic beehive, and it was a joy to see them out there with their horses plowing the fields, and they're in highlands. They're going to be safe, and I was like, wow, so many people are going to turn back to this way of living, and so it's very refreshing that there are really good people. And if I started talking about extraterrestrials, I'd think that they didn't even know what I'm talking about. So,
yeah. Well, no, listen, we meet people like that all the time, and we experience it, and I'm sure people in different countries who are tuning into our show, we always say about people who are on a path of knowledge, and sometimes it takes probably a year, 2 years, 3 years when something comes in and they don't understand it. We always say, look, just put it on the shelf. And when the time is ready, you'll take that thing, take that knowledge back down and go, now I get it. Because it's happened to me and Steve. So never knock something aside. But there are people, obviously, who, when their belief is challenged, they prefer to actually have a go at it rather than actually keep an open mind and go, well, that's interesting. I'm not going to believe it, but I'm going to look into it and research it. Or else I'm going to put it on the shelf and I'll go back to it. And that's the best way to be, and we call that our fluid belief system. And the video is on YouTube if people want to have a listen to it.
And well, that's what's so important about this show. Open your mind. Open your mind. Do it. Open your mind.
Well, I know it's a classic, but they say your mind is like a parachute. It works better when it's open.
Exactly.
Steve, more questions there for Gordon.
Yeah, just before I go to a question here from John, I'm just wondering, Gordon, you said you got another beehive. I'm just wondering, what's the state of play with the bees over there at the moment? I haven't seen any over here. We're coming into summer, and I haven't actually seen any bees. And again, we heard information, I think last year, saying that the bees were dying out, and once the bees kind of went, we'd be a couple of years later, we'd be gone.
Well, bees were brought over from Europe, so originally in North America, everything was pollinated by bumblebees, not honeybees. And we've got quite a healthy group of bumblebees, but the honeybees seem to be doing a lot better recently. But people have really awakened to the fact that you shouldn't be using any Monsanto chemicals or Bayer chemicals on your bees, I mean, they've been doing the same thing for millions of years. Why mess with it,
Exactly. Why mess with nature?
Exactly.
And our bees are very happy. I had 2 hives last fall, and one of them died from the cold over the winter. My goal this summer is to build a bee house on wooden runners and put the beehives in the bee house, and then close it up in November and open it up back up in the beginning of March, and have them survive the coldest with insulation.
Okay, well, best of luck with that. We wish you success. Where are we going? Yeah, the question there from John. John is wondering, is Gordon aware that Jesus is actually referred to in the book of Malachi 4.2? And then in inverted commas it says, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. And ye, I'm not sure that's not really a question.
Well, I'm not so sure what that is asking even, but I will say this, that Janet and I regularly pray to Jesus and other people, the Virgin Mary, or people call her Mother Mary, to Saint Germain, who was Mary's husband and Jesus' stepfather, Joseph. So, I believe some of these historical figures are absolutely real, and they care deeply about what's going on, and they're not here walking around, but I believe that they can contact us at any point. So I ask for help a lot, and I ask the Zetas to help other people. I try and never ask for myself, but as I told you before the show, I nearly died of a lung clot, pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in my lung on February 29th, and I spent 18 days in the hospital, and I was at a pretty low point, and I thought I had a real choice to go or not go, and I thought of Janet being by herself, and then I decided I didn't want to see that, so I came back. But it was a pretty dark period there, but I did ask the Zetas for help with that, and I've asked other ETs, and I do hear voices in my head. I can't see the fourth dimension now. If a Zeta, fourth dimensional Zeta, came through the wall, my wife can see that. But I can hear them speak to me, and I can ask them questions and talk to them, and they're not going to tell me when pole shift is. So, you'd think, well, that's the number one question, you should ask it, but no. I know they're not going to. They've said they're not going to, and that's that. So, I mean, when I talk to Nancy Leader, she goes, listen, if I knew when pole shift was, I probably couldn't help myself, and I'd tell you. Then you tell other people, then the rich people would find out, and they do all kinds of terrible things to you and me to get rid of us. And instead, they've got to be taken by surprise themselves. So,
can I just ask you something? There was a bit of controversy with Nancy Leader when she was told that it was all going to happen in 2003, and she spent loads of money on credit cards, and it turned out that it didn't happen, and she had to pay all these debts.
$40,000 she spent.
Yeah, I mean, surely that's a kind of a red flag to anybody, to say, well,
you would think so, but they said, well, we knew that George Bush had spies watching you full time, and we were trying to get George Bush to show his hand by going into Iraq early. And that's what happened. I mean, look at what's going on. I hear Jeb Bush was just in Europe saying that everyone is frightened to death if Donald Trump becomes president. Well, I got to tell you, that's the exact opposite. We're so excited over here. So many people that this is finally the guy that can't be bought, that's going to fix everything. And I grew up out in Connecticut outside of New York, and I remember reading about him, 30 years ago, and he would read in the newspaper that some couple was being evicted for their house, and he would call up the bank and yell at them, and they would stop the eviction. Then he rented an arena, then he hired some rock bands, and then he had a concert to benefit the family, and they raised enough money to pay off the mortgage. I mean, that's the kind of guy this is. So I'm not worried about him, and then they were saying, Hillary was saying, well, he's so divisive, ISIS is using him as a recruitment tool. Well, actually, no. Since he announced his candidacy, the amount of ISIS recruitment in the United States has dropped way down. I mean, because they know Obama's not going to do anything. They know Hillary Clinton's not going to do anything. And they know Donald Trump is.
But isn't Trump a big friend of Israel?
He's neither a friend nor not a friend. Israel Israel is one of the darkest places on earth. Not the Israeli people, but the leaders of Israel. Oh my God, what they've been involved with. And, you know, they've been supporting ISIS in return for oil, and so has Saudi Arabia and Turkey. So, you know, just because if you listen to what Israel says, then you think, oh my God, they're under threat nonstop here. But I just think he's going to get some real experts and sit down and discuss it, and he's going to make a decision individually of each situation and fix it. But
yeah, but Gordon, do you not think that, you know, even if Trump gets in, he'll be called into a room like Obama, and they'll be showing him a video of JFK being shot that nobody else has seen, and they'll look at him and they go, get the picture?
Right. Well, the thing is that they're trying to kill him every day already. The Council of Worlds is protecting him. So, if the unselfish extraterrestrials are protecting him, what does that tell you?
Okay, well, yeah, well,
he's a phenomenal guy. They tried to fix the ice skating rink in Central Park. They had every contractor in the world. The city of New York spent untold millions of dollars. Finally, they went to Trump and they said, "Do you think you can fix it?" And 6 months later, it was fixed and it was making ice, and it's been making ice ever since. And then Fort Greene, Brooklyn, the state of New York. It was the worst ghetto. If you had an assault rifle in each hand, you still wouldn't have been safe if you went there. And they wanted to urban renovate it, and nobody could do it. They spent almost $1 billion and got nowhere. And the governor and the mayor of New York went to Trump and said, "Do you think you could do something?" Well, a year and a half later, it's safe enough to take your wife and kids out to dinner, then go to a movie, and then go to your apartment in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. So this is a guy that just because nobody else could do it and nobody even thought it could be done, he does it. So, I mean, it isn't really like waving a magic wand. The guy is really a genius. I mean,
I think there's a mixed reaction to Trump on their chat facility. Some people are saying that they agree with you, and other people are saying that he's not to be trusted. So I think there's a good debate on there. Well, listen.
Well, I know that's going to continue even after he's president. But the thing is look at what he did. He has had more votes from Republicans than any other candidate in the history of the Republican Party already, and there's still 6 more primaries to go. And he defeated 16 other candidates. And so, you know, the one thing, the Rothschild Trust Fund went to him and said, "Look, would you please run for president to make sure that Hillary and the Bush family do not get in the White House?" And he's pretty well accomplished that so far. The next step is Hillary being arrested.
So here we go. So we heard last week about that the Illuminati is gone and there's now 5 factions. Right, forget about countries and governments. There's 5 factions, and you have different. Obviously, you have the Asian faction, Bush faction, then and there's the 3 other factions that we have. So the fact that the Rothschilds went to him and said, "Will you run as president?" So the Hillary Clinton Bush faction, obviously, one faction doesn't want the other faction to get in. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Trump is a good guy. He's just probably working for one faction out of the other 4.
No, that isn't true at all. He's really is independent, and he doesn't have any faction paying anything and telling him what to do. He decides what to do, and it's turned politics upside down. You can turn on TV and watch the news now, and everyone is saying nobody has ever seen this before. And, you know, that's what I think is we have a new world coming. We need new leaders, and we're lucky enough to have one, you know, in the candidacy now. Now, people might not like him. I'll give you an example. Guns, okay? Hillary wants to eliminate all guns, just like in England and Canada, right?
Yeah.
And Trump wants to appoint somebody to the Supreme Court that's never going to let that happen.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough.
My wife got a call the other day from some polling service, and they said, "If you're in the mall and you hear there's an active shooter, would you call the police?" And she said no, because the police are an hour and a half away. Well, are you scared when you go to the mall? No. Would you call the security guards? Maybe, if I ever saw one. I've never seen a security guard in the mall. But, and they're like, "Why is this?" And that's because Maine eliminated the concealed weapons permit. Now, any person that's not a felon or hasn't been committed to a mental hospital involuntarily can carry a loaded gun in his car, on his person, anywhere he wants to go. And the thing is if there was a shooting in the mall, there's probably 1,000 people in the mall all carrying weapons, and you know some of them are going to step forward and take care of it. Some of these shootings have been at schools on a dead-end road, and at the beginning of the road there's a big sign, gun-free area. That's the problem, is that the people who are psychopaths with guns can go in there and just shoot at will. But in Maine, you know, my brother was like, oh, Maine's going to be like the Wild West. Well, guess what? Mass shootings haven't happened. They're not going to happen. You always get people who commit suicide with a gun, and then you have a few murders and stuff, usually between people who know each other. But the idea that somebody's going to come into some place in Maine with a gun and expect he can pick off everybody, gee, they seem to have learned that everyone in Maine might be carrying a gun, and guess what? We're all safer.
Yeah, well, listen, I kind of agree with that policy. You know, guns don't kill people, people kill people.
Right.
Right, so, and I agree, because over here in Ireland, there seems to be an awful lot of support for the criminals and for the homeowner who's in his house with his family, and somebody breaks in, and if you end up doing any harm to the person who breaks in, then you're in trouble. Not the person who broke in. So I'm very kind of old-fashioned with that, saying if somebody breaks into your house, they lose all their rights, and you can do what you want with that person because they haven't been invited in and they shouldn't be there. And that's just maybe I'm just old-fashioned, but that's the way I see it.
Oh, no, but see, that's a lot of people feel this way in this country, and I think that you know, if anyone, like, there was a famous radio host, Glenn Beck, and he was saying, well, if they came in to take his guns, he'd say, oh, they're all in the safe. And then, of course, they'd look in the safe and there wouldn't be any guns. And he goes, oh, geez, when I wasn't looking, somebody must have stolen them. I don't know where they are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, we have 5 minutes left. And how many questions do we have, Steve? Two questions. So we'll quick fire them over to you, and then we'll get them done.
I just have to say, if someone did break into your home, I know they would lose all their rights and privileges. You would put them to work. They'd be washing the dishes. Anyway, where are we? We have a question from Thomas. One from Thomas and one from John Anthony's final two questions of the evening. Thomas says, is Project Bluebeam for the fake alien invasion or a psyop?
The whole thing is a psyop, even the fact that they could do that, because they can't do it. And nobody would believe it for a minute, and none of the aliens would let that happen, because the last thing they want to do, every show I ask people to repeat after me, I call upon the Council of Worlds to eliminate the element of doubt. Now, the element of doubt occurs with every saucer sighting. There's always somebody that can say, oh, that was headlights on the clouds, or that was you were drunk, or you were high. So the element of doubt is to eliminate the element of doubt. So if we're going to have open contact, and more than 50% of the world believes extraterrestrials have always been here and are here now, then why not? You know, the doubt was put there so that skeptics could remain skeptical. But by calling upon the eliminate the element, and there was such an interesting incident from New Zealand, perhaps you heard of it. There was a huge crowd watching a flying saucer. Then a TV crew came and videotaped it. Then it zipped off, and so fast that nobody saw where it went, and it went to Australia, and they captured it on radar because, get this, they created a fake transponder number. Well, the radar drops anything off the radar screen, and they're always recorded. They dropped it off because it might be a bird or a drone or a cloud, but when it had a transponder number, they kept it on the screen. So they have a recording of this thing doing like 6,000 miles an hour from New Zealand to Australia. Well, that's never happened before. So I think we're gradually moving towards, you know, people say, well, different people like Stephen Greer are going to lead to disclosure, or Angelo Basaggio running for president, he's going to bring disclosure, or Hillary says she's going to look into UFOs if she's president. All this, it's all BS. I'm sorry. But, you know, when you have a saucer for the first time ever giving out a fake transponder number so that the radar in New Zealand and Australia didn't drop it off the screen, well, that's news.
Okay, listen, we have one more question, and then we'll have to leave it at that. Steve.
Okay. There's loads of questions on the screen here, but as I did say, the last one was from John Anthony, so apologies to everybody else. And this one came in a while ago, and John is wondering, Gordon, why doesn't the vacuum of space suck our Earth's atmosphere?
Why doesn't it suck off Earth's atmosphere?
Yeah.
Well, because it's all the gravity from outer space is pushing against the Earth, so it's not just going to get swept away. I've never been asked that question before. It never really was a question. But Mars, the Anunnaki from Planet X were mining gold there before they came to the Earth. And they drained all the oceans of the Earth into inner caverns in Mars. And that changed the climate because there wasn't enough moisture to create a cyclical system and to keep the temperatures warm enough. But I don't really think that's a problem. Yeah. I've never heard anybody say it was a problem. I've never even heard it mentioned. Oh, we're losing our atmosphere to space. What are we going to do?
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, Gordon, we've reached that time. Thank you very, very much for coming on. It's always a pleasure. Well, and it's always fantastic.
Can I tell you how to listen to my show?
Yeah, we're going to do that now. Dave's going to get all your details now in a minute. We're going to go through that. We'd just like to say a big thank you for coming on to the show. And it's great information as usual, and a lot for people to actually take on and digest and think about it as well. You know, because as I said, I was going to play devil's advocate, which I did, because I think there are people who are skeptical about certain things. But again, listen to the show, listen back to the show, and then make up your own mind, do your own research. So again, thanks for coming on. I'm going to pass you over to Steve, and Steve's going to get all your details on where they can find you and where they can tune in and listen to what you have to say.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Gordon, a very, very brilliant information, actually. I mean, as we said, may not resonate with everybody, but, you know, it's good information, and people should put it on the shelf and maybe...
Well, I mean, I don't think I sound like an idiot, you know?
No, you don't.
So, it really should give everybody pause to think, what if this guy is right, you know, and look into it for yourself.
Well, that's what we always say. We always say to people that, you know, have an open mind. If something doesn't resonate with you now, pop it on the shelf and revisit it at a later date, because, you know, what doesn't ring a bell today may ring a bell tomorrow.
Right.
Anyway, Gordon, give us out your details there so people can check out your live show.
People who wish to write to me, which I never had an address, but now I do, it's P.O. Box 51, which is easy to remember because it's like Area 51, Ellsworth, Maine, ELLSWORTH, Maine, 04605. If you'd like to send me a postcard or write to me, tell me what you thought of the show, or send a donation, even if it's British pounds or euros, that's fine. Any donation is good, because Janet and I just bump along at the bottom of the Social Security ladder here. But anyway, and my show is on every Friday night in 12 o'clock midnight Eastern time, every Friday night, which would be 5 a.m. Irish time, and it's on freedomslips.com, which is also spelled the same way as freedomslips.com. There's 2 studios. I'm on Studio A, and you can join the archives there for $5 a month and listen to a year's worth of shows. And I've done 95 shows so far on Revolution Radio, which you'd think that would be named Revolution Radio, but evidently they weren't able to acquire the name. Somebody else had it. So it's Freedom's Lips. And the producers tell me that I'm up to 1 million listeners now every Friday night.
Brilliant. And you've been on Coast to Coast FM as well.
I've been on Coast to Coast AM 4 times, and they just called me they have a TV show, and they just called me to fly me to Boulder, Colorado, and sit down and do an interview with George Norrie on Planet X for internet TV, but I'm going to tell them tomorrow that I'm just not going to risk my life to do that, because I need a double hip replacement, and I don't need to form a blood clot being on airplanes 18 hours and 3 days.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that. All right, Gordon, stay with us there for a minute. We're going to go off to a musical break. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back after this.
Okay, thank you.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, UnitedWeStrike.com, and PeoplesInternetRadio.com.
Yes, anyone fancy a dance, says Chris on the chat room. Yes, I'm sure everybody was bopping around to that one. Good information there from Gordon James Gianninto. As I say, it may not resonate with everybody. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, But Gordon believes what he says with conviction, and, you know, fair play to him. Again, if you want to check out his live show, it's 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 5 a.m. Irish time. Podcasts are available on freedomslips.com. And as he said, if you want to maybe drop him a postcard, it's P.O. Box 51 Ellsworth, ELLS Worth. That's in Maine. And it's 04605. So yeah, check him out on the show, on the live show or the podcast.
Brilliant. And we did, I just sent over a message to Gordon on Skype saying that the actual plane that went down was a Dreamliner 787 and not a 777. But look, that's semantics, you know what I mean? Just don't worry about that. A plane went down. That's really it, really. But no, great information from Gordon. Again, I was playing devil's advocate. I was asking about certain questions because we have come across so much information that go against what Gordon is saying. But then again, NASA has turned around and said Planet X and Nibiru doesn't exist. So if never a straight answer NASA is saying it, then there's a chance that it probably is there. But who knows? We don't see it. We haven't seen it. So I think I'll be sitting on the fence. Maybe Steve will. I don't know. What about you, Steve?
I'll be joining you on the fence. We can whittle some wood while we watch it all unfold.
We'll be spoon whittlers. We'll be sitting on the fence waiting for Planet X Nibiru to come on. And if I can get the grade 12 glass instead of the grade 14, I'll try and pick that up and see if we can see anything. Because I think that would be good. Right, next week, thanks for everybody tuning on. We had loads of people in the chat room and online tuning into the show. Fantastic information. We'll get him on again in a few weeks, maybe a couple of months' time, when things start happening over in the States, and we'll get his take on things and see what's going on.
Well, if we see Hillary getting arrested, well then, you know,
yeah,
I think we'll have him back on even sooner.
They call her Billary, not Hillary, because there's Bill and Hillary, don't they? So they call her Billary. Right, next week I can't tell you what guest we're going to have on because we're waiting on confirmation from the guest, but chances are it's going to be an Irish-based guest talking about things that are happening in Ireland. But we'll keep you posted. Just watch the schedule and keep an eye on that. And if you have any queries or any questions, you can email us and let us know. The supporters group is now up and running. Just to let you know, on the website we did mention it last week. So if you do fancy being a supporter and you're happy with the fluid belief system and the guidelines, by all means have a look at that information. And then follow the directions that's on the website. But that's really it. Again, as we said at the start of the show, two things that we think you should look at is the attempted eviction in Clare and how these thugs in balaclavas came along and tried to evict. I mean, these guys are supposed to be from, you know, the bank, from the bailiffs in balaclavas with unmarked cars with no tax, no insurance, and the Gardaí are supporting them by not doing anything. I mean, seriously. I mean, these people really need to question themselves with their morals and where the hell they stand. And also the interview that Ben Gilroy did, again, a very good interview that Ben did on People's Internet Radio. Great information. He was just being honest and spoke from the heart. And I have to agree with most of what he said. I agree with him. You know, we need to wake these people up. And everybody that tunes into OYM Radio who's open-minded, we need to be waking people up. Because, you know, we can't carry on the way things are at the moment. It's just ridiculous. There's a small few people in the golden circle that are keeping things the way they are because it suits them and they're making loads of money for it. The amount of corruption, and we know it's out there, we see it blatantly in our face, it's unreal. And the only way we're going to change it is by waking people up and showing them what's going on. So if you can go over and get that video in Clare and show your family and friends the video and go, do you think that's right? Do you think there should be people like that turning up at somebody's house with balaclavas, unmarked cars, with the Gardaí in tow? How is that law? You know, so if you go into court and you have a parking ticket, surely you could go up to the registrar, the judge, and go, hang on a minute, this guy here has no car tax, he's no insurance, and his number plate is covered up. And the guards are there and not doing anything. So you're saying that's right, and yet I'm being done for a parking ticket. You know, this is the whole it's farcical, the law, the way it is. We don't have law. You know, it's one rule for them, one rule for us, and it has to change, and we need to wake people up. But that's my take on it. I won't say I'm emotional, but I'm very annoyed seeing that video. Steve, what do you think?
He is very emotional. He has a box of Kleenex here and it's nearly gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking when I was hearing Gordon about what was going on, the old saying from Jaws, the Jaws movie came in, I think we need a bigger boat. If we're going like...
A bigger boat? I think we need a boat.
If we're going to get massive flooding and stuff like that, look, there's only so much that we can do. But by the way, if that starts happening, Loch Crew is where the party's going to be, okay? So put that in your sat nav and bring your beers. It's bring a bottle. Unfortunately, we won't be supplying the food. Bring food and bring a bottle. We'll be at the top of Loch Crew, the megalithic graves. Okay, we'll be having a party up there. So
yeah, there's a lock on it. So if anyone has an angle grinder, just in case it's raining. Yes.
Now the megalithic graves are quite small, so I think that would have to be used as a toilet, really.
You can't pee on the dead.
Because you won't fit everybody in there for the party, you know?
We could use that as the kitchen or something.
Well, mind you, if we're getting solar flares, the sun might be out anyway, so it might be raining.
True.
But you know what Ireland is like.
Yeah, you know, as you say, and it's true, when I used it in work, your analogy in work during the week, you know it's summer in Ireland, the rain is warm.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Well, I was hoping, apparently we're supposed to have a heat wave this week. But I think it's more the music than the actual sun.
Yeah.
You know, we had a bit of sun. I think we had our summer last week with 3 days of sun. I actually got the garden done. But so we have a few guests coming up in the next few weeks. And don't forget, Ken Smollen's going to be on the 5th of June on the show. And the week after that, there's going to be a big meeting down in the Collection Hotel in Portlaoise. And myself and Steve are planning to go down there. There's going to be a lot of groups from different groups around the country going to it and seeing what we can do. Now, we know what the problems are, but we need people having solutions, because that's the whole idea. What are the solutions? How can we do this and get people on board and wake people up? And, well, all we can do is try anyway. So, and it's donations. If you have a couple of quid, you can throw it in the bucket, but it is free to go to the meeting. And myself and Steve are just going to be curious to see what's going to be said down the Collection Hotel. But we'll have Ken on, and we're going to be talking about the state of the country. Next week's show, the group we're looking to get on, or the people we're looking to get on, hopefully we'll do a talk in Ireland on what's going on, because there's so much going on at the moment, it's just unreal. But anyway, for myself, we're going to let you go. We're going to pass you off the PIO. We don't know who's on with Vin, do we?
No.
Okay,
sorry.
I'm sure it's going to be good anyway. Anyway, so for myself, Alan James, take it easy, stay safe. If you have any information, preferably audio or video, I know there's a lot of people that, you know, email us and say, oh, I've woke up to what's going on and I've written an ebook, and that's brilliant, fair play to you, but I really don't have time to be reading ebooks. There's just so much going on here on Walton's Mountain and OYM Towers. There's an awful lot going on, so if you have a video audio, it's much better if you can do that. Because I can be listening while I'm doing other stuff as well. That's the whole idea behind that. So for myself, take it easy, stay safe, and if you have any news, let us know. Bye-bye.
Okay, and for myself, Stephen George, yeah, it's been fantastic. Good evening. Thanks to everybody who joined us on the chat rooms there, and for all the questions and the comments as well. We're going to, as I say, we're going to pass you over to Vin on People's Internet Radio. So if you're listening on our stream, the stream will be closing down any moment now. And if you want to hear more good information and banter, then stay tuned on peoplesinternetradio.com. So until next week, take care. Bye-bye.